Well, the countdown is on to Election Day. All eyes are on the three men running to be New York City's next mayor.
Yeah, they hit the stage for the final time to get their message out to voters last night, and man, were they on the attack.
The issue is that we have all experienced your experience. The issue is that we experienced you taking a $5 million book deal while you sent seniors to their deaths in nursing homes.
The issue is you have no experience.
That's right.
You've accomplished nothing. You haven't proposed a bill on anything.
Zohran, your resume could fit on a cocktail napkin. And Andrew, your failures could fill a public school library in New York City.
Well, you know the candidates: independent mayoral candidate, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, Republican Curtis Sliwa, and frontrunner Democrat Zohran Mamdani. They all faced off on topics which included cost of living, crime, affordable housing, and current events like the ICE raids of vendors on Canal Street. And joining us with his analysis is Ben Max, program director at New York Law School's Center for New York City and State Law, and host of the Max Politics podcast. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So I'll just start with you, your general impressions of last night.
Sure, I thought it was a very interesting, fiery, substantive debate. It was really good. I mean, you saw the differences within the candidates. The candidates brought it. I thought by and far it was Andrew Cuomo's best debate performance, primary and general combined. I mean, he really was sharp and on the attack and looked more energized than we've seen him in many instances. Part of the problem with his campaign, of course. And Curtis Sliwa was solid. Mamdani got some of his licks in, but bottom line, general impression, big strokes. Nothing happened that changes the dynamics of the race, but this is, again, more fuel for people just tuning in to start to really get a feel for the candidates, and we saw big differences among them. The choices, you know, are pretty stark here. This is not about candidates that are close to each other, right? You've got someone on the far left, someone kind of in the middle, and someone on the center right, and that's the choices in front of voters.
When you take a look at it, we got Trump, we got Israel, but this one seemed to focus a little bit more on local issues and pocketbook issues than the previous debate did. Do you think that worked in anybody's favor last night?
It was a mixed bag. I mean, you got a sense of how candidates are talking about things like controlling the school system, what they want to do about the Rikers Island jail and the possible jails to replace them, and other things of that nature. One of the most important things about last night's debate, though, was it really dug in more, and this was partly from the moderator's questions and partly how the candidates handled it, on experience. We saw that in the clip just now, and on whether candidates are really ready to be mayor. As much as Andrew Cuomo throws the lack of experience at Mamdani, he comes back with the scandals and the issues from Cuomo's time as governor, right? And then Sliwa was there chiming in, attacking both of them on that. So you got into a lot of that. And there are issues that were raised around Mamdani where you want to be mayor of New York City, and in this public forum, you won't take a position on the ballot questions related to housing.
I was going to ask you about that.
Do you think that scored points?
It doesn't matter as much to voters on the substance of it, because I think a lot of voters are still learning that there's questions on the ballot about housing and land use, but it's about how it makes you look mayoral or not. And when you're 34 years old and inexperienced and running for mayor, you have to sort of look like you want to be a leader, and he looked not that way in that moment.
And it was interesting. Andrew Cuomo went over basically how things work in government. You know, Mamdani would say, I'm going to do this, and then Andrew would say, you can't do that. This is what you have to do, and he kind of laid it out. Do you think that helped Andrew Cuomo in any way?
Absolutely. I think there were several moments where Cuomo's experience and command of what government is and does, and the division between state responsibility and city responsibility on housing that came up, and how the Rent Guidelines Board works and all that.
Yeah, the Rent Guidelines Board was kind of a scoring.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but then Mamdani's got his rebuttal, which is the mayor appoints all the members of the Rent Guidelines Board.
But not at one time.
Right, but so, yes, those moments absolutely were largely in Cuomo's favor, and he had some of that verve that we haven't always seen.
So Curtis Sliwa, let's talk about Curtis, because, I mean, Curtis is always great. He's a great wordsmith. Does he gain anything from this, or is he just a spoiler at this point?
Well, if you are looking at the dynamics of this race, he still continues. There's very little room to believe there's a path to victory for Curtis Sliwa. He's been polling at still roughly half, a little more than half, of what he got in a blowout loss 4 years ago. So the question is he helping down ballot Republicans? That seems to be part of the reason he's staying in the race. The GOP chairs of the cities, counties want him to stay in the race. They supported him. But yes, at this point, he's keeping a lid on Andrew Cuomo's possibility for taking on Zohran Mamdani in a closer race. However, I don't know that Curtis is wrong to stay in this race and say, I'm a major party nominee. I deserve to have my day in front of voters.
Except
right?
that people now are strategizing how to vote. We learned that during the primary, right, with ranked choice voting. Now we're talking about strategy again.
Well, this is why you see longtime allies of Curtis Sliwa who love him are saying, I love you, but get out of the race. You know, his boss at the radio station, John Katzmatidis, and others. So there's a lot of people thinking strategically like that. Curtis has his viewpoint. I do think, as Andrew Cuomo has made the argument, that as voters pay closer and closer attention, they will see it as largely a two-person race. The biggest problem for Cuomo and the anti-Mamdani forces is there's a lot of Republicans who voted against Andrew Cuomo in 3 straight gubernatorial races who do not want to just sort of like bite the bullet and vote for Andrew Cuomo. They're going to stick with Curtis Sliwa, so we'll see.
Or not show up. That was my question, because I think there's a large assumption that if Sliwa drops out of the race or says he's endorsing Cuomo, whatever it is, that everybody who's voting for him would vote for Cuomo. Not everybody's going to do that, right? Because either they're going to still vote for Sliwa or maybe just go, I'm out of this one entirely.
Absolutely possible that Republican voters stay home. I mean, it's very funny. We're sitting in a city that's, 75% Democrat, and it potentially is, half of Republican voters who will determine, the outcome of this election by whether they come out for Andrew Cuomo, stick with Sliwa, or stay home. The other interesting thing here is if we look at the polling, you've got roughly 50% of the electorate with Mamdani and 50% of the electorate with the others, right? And so we'll see how that all comes down to Election Day. So much will hinge on whether Mamdani can bring out his young voters again. We don't know, but it's likely. So, we'll see. And Andrew Cuomo is going to make his, final argument about why voters should abandon Curtis Sliwa, but he's also got to hold on to those Democrats that are still with him, and that's a tricky balance for him.
Barring something unforeseen happening, wild and crazy, that would be bad for everybody. Is there a path mathematically for Andrew Cuomo to win?
Yeah, there is. Curtis Sliwa's support collapses because his voters see it as a two-person race and think strategically, we don't like Andrew Cuomo, but we're going to vote for him to stop Mamdani. And then the Cuomo supporters turn out in strong numbers, and Mamdani's vote is a little bit less than maybe expected. Again, they have a big turnout machine, the Mamdani campaign, so I wouldn't expect that. But there is
the Jewish population's not going to come out and support him. They have all these rabbis who signed that.
But you also see a little bit of sort of cracks in the moderate to conservative Jewish vote. People taking meetings with Mamdani because they think he's going to win, right? And there's a lot of people doing that across sectors.
That strategy as well.
Oh, that strategy as well. But there is a path. I mean, there's a path. It looks narrow, but again, these polls, we got to take them with a grain of salt. They might be underestimating Mamdani, but they also are not necessarily forecasting what the exact electorate will look like, and that's where people got to get out to vote.
All right, and early voting starts Saturday. The general election's a week from Tuesday, November 4th. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.